running. Thank you. We are now up and running, and the meeting is also being recorded. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Licensing Subcommittee B this evening. I will just run through the protocols for the remote hearing. I know that a lot of members have heard this already and officers, but this is for the benefit of our public attendees. And if I can start by saying, if you could only speak when you're invited to by the chair of the proceedings. If you wish to speak, if you can raise your hand like thus. And if you are speaking, if you can direct all of your comments through the chair, please. Can you ensure that when you're not speaking that your mic is muted, but that will not apply to the chair because the chair will have control of the meeting, will have their mic on at all times. When speaking, if I can ask you to be as succinct and as clear as possible, and to also speak slowly, and in order for everyone in the meeting to be able to understand what's being said, and that allows for full inclusivity. If you're referring to any page or any document or any objection, any map, please refer to the page number or when doing so. If you're having any technical difficulty, if you use the little chat bar in the right-hand corner that looks like a little DV screen, and our IT expert Mario will try to assist you wherever possible. Please do not use the chat function for any other purpose. If there is any persistent misbehaviour, the person will be removed from the meeting and will not be allowed to rejoin. As there is only one application this evening, at the end of the application, the whole process has been heard through and everyone has given a chance to speak. The chair will thank everyone for attending and will ask the applicant and representative to leave the proceedings, and if you could do so as soon as possible, because that will allow the subcommittees to then deliberate. Once the subcommittee have deliberated and made their decision, this will be conveyed to all concerned within 5 working days. Normally, we would then post the decision online on the council's website. Due to the current IT difficulties that Hackney are experiencing, we will do this as soon as it's practically possible to do. So I just wanted to advise you of that. As we are now moving to item 1 on the agenda, which is the election of the chair, could I have a nomination for the chair, please?
I nominate Councillor Gordon.
Okay, as there are no other nominations, Councillor Gordon, you are now in the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now moving on to agenda item 2, apologies for absence. I understand there's no apologies. I'd now invite all participants to introduce themselves. I'll start. I'm Councillor Margaret Gordon representing Leabridge. So if the other my two colleagues introduce themselves.
Councillor.
Sorry, go ahead.
Councillor Harvey Oz representing Springfield.
Yeah. And Councillor Sam Wormer representing Hackney Downs.
Okay, and if the officers could introduce themselves, starting with Amanda, then Silva and Clifford.
Good evening, my name's Amanda North and I'm legal advisor supporting members. Chair, can I just mention that we need to cover the statutory declarations on the list of items on the agenda? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, that's fine, yeah.
Could I just advise, I've just been advised by licensing service that a resident has requested to attend the meeting. I think he's one of the objectors, Tabitha Tanqueary, and I'm going to now allow her to join the meeting. I'm going to send an invite to her. Okay, if that's okay, if you could bear with me for a moment, you may proceed. I will just need to go away for a short while. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Ramana,
So were you going to briefly introduce yourselves? Yeah.
Sorry. Did you? Sorry. Oh, I said I'm Subhashri Ramana, Principal Licensing Officer.
Yeah. And I think we've also got the applicant and representative. So I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves when we come to your part of the proceedings. So agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Do members of any interest to declare?
No.
No.
No interest.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So agenda item 4, we don't have any minutes of the previous meeting to consider this evening. So we're now going on to agenda item 5, where I'm going to try and briefly outline the procedure this evening. You should all have had this sent to you, and if you're looking at a pack, it's agenda item 5, and it's on a blue piece of paper. So we're going to consider this application this evening. We've already appointed a chair. So we're going to go through the various different steps of the process so that we can fully consider this application. So step 2 is that I will invite the licensing officer to outline the report. The applicant and representative will present their case in support of their application. I will then invite the responsible authorities in attendance to highlight their reasons for objecting to the application if applicable. I will then proceed to invite the other persons in attendance to present their case, highlighting their reasons for objecting or supporting the application as contained in their written submissions, again if applicable. We will then have a discussion on the information presented so that myself and my colleagues can clarify any points and raise any questions if necessary. I will then ask all parties if they've got any final comments to make. And we will have a final opportunity to seek clarification on any points. And then we will then withdraw to consider our decision, which will be notified to parties after the hearing, as Clifford outlined at the beginning of the hearing. So we're now going on to agenda item 6, and I can advise you that this application in respect of Sage Kitchen has now been agreed under the delegating authority and therefore will not require full consideration this evening. So we're now able to proceed on to agenda item 7, which is an application for a premises licence for Planet Food, 298 to 300 Seven Sisters Road. So I understand that representations of the police have been withdrawn and agreed conditions were circulated earlier today confirming this. But there are objections to the application which are shown in Appendix 1, pages 71 to 78 of the pack. And we've got, I think, one objector attending in person this evening. Also, do we know if that's the same person as Objector 7?
No, Chair. That's the objector is C1.
Yeah. So in addition, I'm going to be asking the licensing officer to read out an objection from another objector, which is objection 7 in the pack. I will now invite the principal licensing officer, Suba, to outline the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service received an application under Section 17 of the Licensing Act for a premises license for Planet Food, 298 to 300 Seven Sisters Road, as stated in the agenda. Police and licensing have withdrawn their objection based on agreed condition and reduced hours. The document briefing the reduced hours and conditions have been circulated. Only other person objection remains. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Could you just briefly outline the reduced conditions which have been agreed?
So the reduced hours which has been agreed is the commencing hours Monday to Sunday remain 7 a.m. and the terminal hours are going to be 2300 hours and the closing hours of the premises are going to be 2300 hours as well.
Okay. So that's Monday to Sunday, 7 a.m. to 20.
100 hours. Monday to
2300, and the closing hours of the premises 2300 as well. Thank you very much. So unless members have any quick questions, I will now ask the applicant and his representative, and I invite, is it Robert Sutherland, solicitor, and the applicant, Mr. Mahir Dagdelan, to present opening statements. Mr. Sutherland, are you going to start, or yeah?
Sorry, madam. Good evening.
Hello.
Could I, from experience, and sometimes internet is not as good as sometimes we would like. If the signal goes funny, then I may turn my microphone off, as I have found that can help on occasions, so that you can at least hear me, if not see me. The other thing, madam, if I may, that I have obviously papers all around me, but the camera is small and is focused immediately at my face, so it may appear that I'm not looking at you and I'm looking away. Please forgive me. It's purely to do with the logistics in my office and making sure I can get the right papers. So if it appears discourteous, my apologies.
No problem.
In relation to this particular application, the application is for an off license at the supermarket, Planet Food. The address is as set out in the application. The plan of the premises is set out at page 66, and you can see that it's a general food supermarket that is proposed, and obviously the off license is to supplement that operation. Now, there are a number of conditions which have been proposed in an additional document. I was just going through the conditions in the application papers, and I noticed that there are some differences between them. In relation to the conditions, what I would commend to the committee is that this application, as amended, with all the conditions which are proposed, it's my submission that they will promote the licensing objectives. Some of the conditions, as I say, on the additional document, which I have circulated and agreed with the police, are additional to the documents than in your agenda papers. So, for example, if you were looking at my additional document, condition 5 talks about an incident log. That isn't in your papers, but of course it is a condition which, should the committee grant the application, they're invited to add. A number of the conditions on the additional document are already contained within your papers. Again, I would ask that if the license is granted, that obviously the conditions are not duplicated on the particular license. There is a slight change in respect of one of the conditions, which is on your report, which is different, and the environmental health officer has not put did put a representation in, but withdrew it, and you don't have that representation. And I've agreed with JC Fruin that there be a slight change to one of the conditions, which deals with the receptacle outside the premises, because there is a bin which is positioned outside, and JC Fruin has agreed the wording on the additional document that I've submitted in respect of condition 5, which talks about the licensee ensuring that there's a receptacle for cigarette ends. So should the bin that's currently out there be removed, then of course he would be responsible to make sure that a bin is located there. Now, in relation to the proposed operation, as I've indicated, it's as a supermarket. Background in relation to Mr. Dagdelan is set out in a letter which he in fact sends to the police dated 17th of September, and which is contained at page 65 of your bundle. You'll see that he has substantial experience, 20 years within licensing, and has held a personal license since 2008. and has substantial experience in the licensed trade. The investment in respect of this particular premises is in the region of £200,000, which is reflecting obviously in the acquisition of the property and the lease and in the fitting out of the premises. I mention that because I think it's important. It supports what he says in his letter at page 65, in that it supports his stance that he becomes part of the community, and if a license is granted, the premises opens and operates, then he considers himself to be an important part of the community, and therefore links with residents and people who come through the area are very important to him. I'm conscious of the fact that I'm only given, I think, 5 minutes to address you, and I've probably taken up that time, I would anticipate. And so it may be appropriate at this stage, Madam, that if there are any questions that we will address them and take you through them. I think the amendments to the application and the conditions proposed address a good number of the objections which have been put forward, which are concerned obviously about the area itself, but also predominantly about the times of operation, which of course this has now been brought into line with your policy in this area. Unless I can assist you further at this stage, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know whether my colleagues have got any brief questions or for clarification. Councillor Odds? Councillor Odds?
It's just on one of the conditions that's been proposed, the additional conditions, talks about the prohibition of selling containers of 50 millilitres or less. Would you be willing to agree to that being 100 millilitres or less?
I think that that in that particular case, it's a condition which has been requested by the police in this particular matter, and what the applicant has agreed to is that if there are any bottles which are miniatures, which are 50, then obviously they wouldn't be sold. I haven't taken specific instructions from Mr. Dagdellen in relation to if we're talking about 100 millilitres rather than 50, and I don't know whether Mr. Dagdellen is able to address you specifically on that, sir.
Hi. For the liter, so we got liter there, council liter there already. So for us so we already agree with we're not gonna sell any miniatures or about 6.5 beers, but for the rubbish offside, we will always like watch and then keep it clean around our business, and do our best to keep it clean everywhere. So for the litter, and yeah.
And I think Councillor Odds' question was more sort of specific about the sale, the appropriate size of miniatures. Is that right?
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is that there are some miniatures that are 100 millilitres rather than 50 millilitres, and I'm just saying that I think they should be included in the no sale, anything less that is 100 millilitres or less, because they're just as much miniatures and just as liable to be pocketed and littered as anything else small.
So I think what I would say in relation to that is very much that Obviously, both the police and the licensing authority, based on their experience, have obviously recommended that the condition be 50. And I think at this moment, our request to the committee would be to follow that guidance from the police and from the licensing authority. Sarah, if you're not with us in respect of that, then of course it is open to the committee to amend that condition so that it reads 100 rather than 50. But our request obviously is to follow what the police have said.
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful for that submission. I think we'll now move on to the next stage. The next stage of the. I understand the responsible authorities have withdrawn their objections. So I think we're now going to be inviting other persons. I understand that we've got a member of the public present, Ms. Kenyon, and could you identify which objection you sent in the bundle? And I can invite you to address the meeting.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can you
yes,
hear
I
me?
can. Yes, sorry, I couldn't. Yeah.
Hi, and hello, Mr. Dagdalin. It's nice to see your face. And thanks for the letter. So I had sent a letter. I know quite a few other residents have objected as well. Our main worries are about sort of noise, antisocial behaviour, and also sort of danger to the public. So we have a lot of problem with fighting around here, with alcohol excess, with people popping to the corner shops and getting single cans of things. We'll come out and find sometimes people have been sitting on our doorstep all night drinking cans. We have a lot of problem with littering. So our objections are really, it's not that we don't want, you know, a responsible business there and a lovely corner shop. And we were very concerned that that it was done responsibly. Our other concerns are obviously about the timing. 11 o'clock is still quite late, especially on a Sunday. So we're a residential street. A lot of the kids here obviously have got school every day. So the concerns about people sort of picking up things, but we didn't actually know what kind of business it was going to be. So it sounds like it's going to be a shop and an off license. Is that correct?
We'll move on to the I mean, I'm very happy for you to answer that and maybe describe the business in a bit more detail. So
May I quickly just ask which number is it that you're speaking to?
I'm from 7. Sorry, my surname is Tangeray on the email.
Okay, fine. Oh, you're P7. Fine.
7, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
In relation to
sorry.
In relation to the question about the business, as previously indicated, the business is as a supermarket corner shop, and the layout is as set out on the committee papers, and it's page 66, and that hopefully clearly shows that the premises is very much a shop, and the hours are basically 7 to 11.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Kenyon,
Can I just
any more details that you want to give us in relation to your objections?
Oh, it's me, sorry. Yes, the only other thing was about the time. So again, 7 a.m. seems very early to be selling alcohol, and we do see street drinking really early morning sometimes. So that was our other concern, why we needed to have an alcohol license starting so early. And finally, you know, if the business was changed to a bar or a restaurant or something, would that then need another application and a different licensing process? So we're just anxious in case we end up with a business which isn't as lovely as you describe. If it's as lovely as you describe, we'll be very happy.
Okay, can I just answer that?
Yes, if you can, well, we'll move on to discussion in a minute, but you can just briefly answer the question, then we'll move on to the discussion once we've heard the other objection. But you can briefly answer that question.
Yeah. First of all, the Planet Food is not going to be like regular appliances like you see around your area. So it's my aim to build a like proper organic and healthy foods for residents of Finsbury Park. Is there might be like the alcohol is gonna be maybe 15 or 20% of all our sales or the space wise. So
Sure.
and the house they're already shops and then appliances and supermarkets that are open at like 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock already there. So we're gonna start sell alcohol from 8 a.m. and not 7. We're gonna open a shop 7, but we're gonna start serving alcohol at 8 a.m. till 11 p.m. So and we're gonna cover the space of the alcohol so people cannot even ask for it, buy it. So we will try our best to create a classy and good supermarket and healthy food for the residents of Finsbury Park. So
Thank you, and we appreciated your letter. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we'll now move on to the other objection, which the licensing officer is going to read out, and then we'll move on to a discussion where hopefully we can cover all the different points raised.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm reading this objection on behalf of local residents whose referring is to Appendix C7. So, dear sirs, we are writing to object to the application that has been submitted for permission to sell alcohol for 7 to 100 hours, Monday to Sunday, at the above premises, under 3 of the 4 licensing objectives, namely as follows: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance. To note firstly, the notice has been displayed in the property window over 6 feet in height in Finsbury Park Road and cannot be seen by persons walking past without stretching and using a camera to photograph the notice to ensure it is readable. We only saw the notice was displayed at all as my office desk is directly opposite the property, and I therefore walked up and took a photograph of it so that we could read it. We would therefore suggest that this notice and the one at the front of the building have been displayed in inaccessible positions to prevent persons from reading the notice and objecting to the application. There are small and cannot be easily seen in one's line of vision when walking past the building, especially if one is less than 6 foot tall or in a wheelchair, for example. This is a very poor shown in the interest of public involvement and consultation. In terms of the determinant to the licensing objectives above, as you are no doubt aware, the immediate area is already saturated with licensed premises selling alcohol. Next to this unit is Figaro News. 4 doors away is another supermarket. Across the road is the 12 Pins Pub. Opposite that is the Blackstock Pub at 284 Seven Sisters Road, and another food and wine place on the site of 284A Seven Sisters Road N4. The property is situated on the corner of Seven Sisters Road and Finsbury Park Road N42AA, which is directly opposite to the main entrance to Finsbury Park, where families and others pass by and visit regularly. Finsbury Park Road is 99.99% residential, as are the properties above the building, to the rear of the building, next to the building and opposite the building, with many young families and elderly people. There is also a property a few meters away where vulnerable teenagers reside. There are also issues with people already parking their cars illegally along the small stretch of Finsbury Park Road in the immediate vicinity of the premises, with people blocking garages and parking on the red route highway lines, and additional traffic will only make things worse, especially if the premises are allowed to remain open until 1 a.m., whether alcohol is sold or not. The additional noise and general footfall will only add to noise and be to the detriment of people's quiet enjoyment of their home environment. Most importantly, the local area already has a long-standing major problems with antisocial behavior, drug dealings, drug trafficking, street drinking, littering, and loitering in particular. And both Hackney Council and the local police have not been able to control this over the years, despite many resources being expended in an attempt to do so. Bieka Rimbaran from Hackney Council, local ward councillors such as Councillor Claire Potter and others would no doubt be in a position to update you, as you should the local police safer neighbourhood teams at Brownswood Ward. It is therefore our deep-held opinion that should this alcohol licence be granted, then it would result in additional public nuisance and antisocial behaviour and put inordinate pressure on the council, the police SNT, and other agencies operating in the area. This area is also a compulsory landlord housing licence area, no doubt because of the issues. As we are also freeholders and landlord of a number of properties in the immediate local area, we are also writing on behalf of all our tenants who would be directly affected. These comprise 3 shop offices, 6 flats, and 2 houses, all of which are located the property at number 7 Sisters Road, N4, and Miltadio House, Finsbury Park Road, London, N4. Please, therefore, do not grant a license to sell alcohol on these premises, especially during such extended opening hours, which is not only unnecessary, but wholly unwelcomed and unwanted. Yours sincerely, C7.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the discussion stage. So, Clifford? I can't hear you.
Please, Chair. I just wanted to advise Ms. Kenyon, I have actually just forwarded you the agenda pack and the additional conditions. I apologise, we didn't know that you're going to be attending. Had we done so, they would have been forwarded to you much earlier. I do apologise. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So, we'll now move on to the discussion stage. I mean, obviously, the written objections and also Ms. Kenyon have raised the issue of antisocial behaviour, and I mean, I think a cumulative impact, to put it that way, of a number of different licensed premises in this area, and you know, the concern that they have that, you know, that your premises is going to add to the impact, which has been quite graphically described, of those different premises in what is a residential area. So I just really wondered whether, well, you have commented already on this, but whether you've got anything further to say about that, about how the if this licence is granted, if the proposed measures will protect the local community, and also, I mean, I would also like to know why the premises needs to be able to sell alcohol so early in the morning, at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that does seem quite early. So maybe if you can just explain that. Thank you. And my colleagues may well have questions as well.
Thank you, Madam. In relation to the application, and I think Ms. Kenyon very helpfully stated that if the applicant operated in the way that he described to the committee, that she would be happy, because that fitted in, obviously, with the locality. The concern was that it would turn into something else. And Madam, what I would refer the committee to, and also Ms. Kenyon, is obviously the conditions which have been agreed, which are extensive in relation to the operation of the premises. The application is for the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises. That and all of these conditions, Madam, it would be my submission, would assure Ms. Kenyon that this can't turn into overnight, it can't turn into a late night bar or a late night restaurant without any other applications, without other notification, both to the local residents and obviously to the licensing authority and the responsible authorities. That I think is important, because that gives assurance that that it is what it says it will be. Mr. Dagdelen has indicated that it's his intention for him to be present at the premises all of the time that the shop is open, and that's how he operates. That's his intention in this particular place. So he will be at the premises 7 days a week, and obviously if there's any communication or any issues which local residents have, then he will be only too pleased to meet with the residents and deal with those concerns that they have in person. It's also indicated that he will provide the number or a contact number to the local authority, so that if there are any residents who want to have that number and don't want to ask him directly, of course, then that information can be forwarded to the residents from the authority. So at all times he's looking at being available to address concerns, and obviously also being approachable, so that if there are questions or issues, they can be dealt with as soon as they are raised. Now, in relation to the hours which are proposed, the premises opens at 7. Now, in relation to the sale of alcohol, and this may be a very historic point, Madam, and forgive me for showing my age in relation to this. I think historically off-licences have started and been able to sell alcohol much earlier than on-licensed premises. I think historically that is probably as much to do about people doing the shopping potentially before they go to work, or in a 24/7 type of economy, after they've been to work during the night and when they're coming home. And I think that is really the aim in respect of this particular location, is that it's there for local people to use, and therefore if they are travelling through the area either to get home or from home to work, then the 8 o'clock time would enable them to purchase items. The concern may be in relation to antisocial behaviour, that such an early time may enable persons to purchase cans or cheap alcohol and to sit and drink in the park or in the area. I think what I would say in relation to that is that the conditions, again, which are proposed, are conditions which have been raised and discussed with both the licensing authority and also the police, and are conditions which they consider are appropriate for restricting such street drinking. So, for example, we have the issues which have been raised by Councillor Oddsey in relation to the miniatures, which is one area which has seemed to be helpful, and that's the reason for the 50ml miniature bottles not being sold and available. There is then obviously the condition in respect of beer and lager and cider, so that that won't be sold unless it's under 6.5%. So anything above that won't be available. And again, that's a typical break-off point, because those who tend to be street drinkers would be looking at alcoholic drinks which are cheap and would have high percentage in ABV. So it's those conditions which we would say would address the issue about street drinkers. It's not in Mr. Dagdelen's interest that obviously people who purchase would be standing outside and drinking that's not helpful to his business. It's not and wouldn't be what he would be looking at promoting. So certainly, as he is intending on being present during the opening hours of the premises, he would be looking at controlling that himself and making sure that that doesn't happen. Madam, if I may, it's very difficult when you're dealing with remote hearings, and Mr. Dagdalen and myself are not in the same building or even in the same room. We're some distance apart. I don't know whether there's anything that Mr. Dagdalen would want to specifically add to the points that I've tried to address in relation to questions raised by Ms. Kenyon and also by Councillor Gordon.
Mr. Dagdalen, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I like to add my aim to build up basically the reputable business, and not the regular supermarkets like offline's, just like different, like mainly organic and healthy food. So my target is not street drinkers or walk past customers. My target is resident customers of Finsbury Park. So that's why I'm trying to build a business which is good for Finsbury Park residents. Is they can just like shop good food, find the good food near their house. So for the others walk past and street drinkers is not my target. So that's why we already agreed the miniatures bottles and then 6.5 about beers and ciders not to sell. So I'm trying to build a good residential shop, like not street or like street drinkers things. That's I'm gonna watch that very closely to make sure like they're not gonna give us any trouble to our customers, our staffs, or like around our premises. So I'm gonna watch very closely. So make sure all my staff all of that troubles will come with that street drinkers and crimes or anything. So I will do my best to create a good local organic and healthy food shop there. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you very much. You've both been very helpful. I think Amanda, yeah.
Sorry,
point.
Chair.
And also, if you were going to say this anyway, could you confirm the position in relation to a change of use for the venue that was raised by Ms. Kenyon? Thank you.
Madam, could I, sorry, the change of use to, I think it was, they weren't sure it was possibly going to be a bar or restaurant. Is that the issue?
Yeah, I was just asking our legal advisor to confirm what you said about
madam,
the
I do apologise.
that would require a fresh application.
I thought you were addressing me. I do apologise.
Yeah. You're on mute, Amanda.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. Could you repeat that again, please? Sorry.
Yeah. I was just wondering whether you could just confirm what Mr. Sutherland said, that if these premises were going to change from an off-licence shop to a bar or pub or restaurant or other sort of venue, that would require a fresh application?
Yes, as far as I'm aware,
For a
that
licence?
each yes, if they were going to change any of the proposed use to the that they're currently licensed for, they do need to seek a variation of the application, and that would be a separate process. So they can't change the current off-license use without going through a full variation application or a new application again.
There'd probably also be planning considerations, though they're obviously outside the scope of.
Yes.
So.
I did note that there were no representations from planning on this application. So yes, if they were planning to change the current use to anything else, planning would have an opportunity in the next consultation if they when they make the application to make any representations at that point.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether either of my colleagues have got any questions.
I just had a quick question. Sorry, I forgot to add my question, which is that although you have asked, it's not been made clear why they need to have the hours from 7 a.m. So that wasn't covered in the answers, and also on Sunday, why it needs to close at 2300 hours. So I don't know if we could have some answers to those two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, that's helpful. Yeah. Mr. Sutherland, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you, Madam. Sorry, I intended on covering it, and if my answer was obscure, to be unclear, then my apologies. I think the intention, Madam, in relation to the hours is that 7 o'clock for the opening is in relation to the availability to people who are in the area, whether they live in the area, work in the area, or travelling through the area. That was thought to be an appropriate time to catch people travelling to or from work, and I anticipate that's the reason for the start time of 7. The issue was raised in relation to Sunday and why it needed to be so late on a Sunday. I suppose my answer would be similar, in that obviously people could be travelling to or from the area. I'm going to pass over to, if I may, Mr. Dagdalen, because it may be that, again, he has some specific points that he would look to draw your attention to. And I can't ask him because he's close by. I have to ask him through.
Thank you very much. I can see that both my colleagues are indicating. Is it on this point, in which case I'll bring you in, or a different point?
Yeah, it was. Thanks, Chair. It was around the start time. So in the conversation, which was very helpful, Mr. Dagdalen said that they weren't intending to be selling alcohol at 7 anyway, but the shop would be open at 7. So I think it would be helpful to hear from the applicant what would be suitable as a kind of a start time to start selling alcohol, because it might be that people come into a shop to buy everything but from 7 onwards, and then from another time onwards are able to buy alcohol. I think that's probably the issue here. It might just help us kind of through a bit.
Later. Councillor Rodds, have you got a point on this as well?
I think it might be useful if the licensing officer were to actually state specifically what the hours of opening of the shop have been agreed to be, and what the hours of sale of alcohol have been, because my understanding was that alcohol sales were limited to core hours, as in LP4, which is 8 a.m. to 2300, 7 days a week. But if the licensing officer could clarify that specifically, please.
And that's helpful, and that was my understanding as well. I don't know. Can you clarify that?
As Chair, because based on the report and the application submitted, the police have agreed the terminal hours to be 2300, but the opening hours and the selling of alcohol at 7 o'clock.
No. Sorry, if I may just clarify. I think what was agreed was that the sale of alcohol was very much in line with your policy, so that it's 8 till 2300 every day. it was agreed that the premises would be able to open at 7, but not for the sale of alcohol, merely for the sale of other produce. And other than that, as I say, it's very much in line with your policy. It's not outside of your policy. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, so can I just quickly come back on that, just to clarify
Yes, of course, yeah.
for people that I'm looking at the right thing in that case when I look at page 37 of the bundle.
37 of them.
It's just that I guess that's maybe is causing a bit of confusion. 7. I appreciate the terminal hours have changed, but the start time, I think, so we are, because that says supply and opening hours both at 7.
Sorry, Chair, could you ask Councillor Momer to repeat the page she said, because it got lost.
It's page 37. It's page 37. Yeah, agenda item 6.
Which introduces
7,
the summary of the schedule of hours, because that's the thing that's under contention. I think it feels like from the members of the public too. Supply of alcohol 7, opening hours 7.
I think we're certainly looking for. I think the feeling is that we're looking for a later start time for supply of alcohol, and also I do have some concerns, particularly about Sunday. I don't know whether we should just pass over to the applicant to hear what his intentions are.
Certainly in relation to the hours.
The hours, because the Planet Food is gonna be a supermarket. I understand our residents just worrying about that there might be more noise or anything this Sunday, but I got like 20 years experience, so like I never like had problem on Sunday evenings. It's normally like, you know, just goes smoothly, like, you know, just never had any problem on Sundays about noise or public disturbance or anything. So so I had the licenses before, like in businesses before, like was 11. So so I will try my best to like just like keep that area or my shop quiet and not disturbing for not disturb any resident there. So
Yeah.
so
Can
11
you,
o'clock. So it's normally is standard time. So for the supermarkets. So like.
Would it help,
can you
Madam? Sorry, Madam. I was just going to say, would it help if I formally clarify that the hours for the sale of alcohol on the amended application are 8 a.m. to 2300 hours, which is as per your policy. If there is anything which is unclear from the paperwork, if I can just say, look, my apologies on that, but actually that's the intent here is the application.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd just like to hear from the applicant about the reason for the 8 a.m. start time and who he's intending to sell alcohol to at that time and why he needs an 8 a.m. start rather than maybe a time later in the morning or midday.
Well, your policy says 8 o'clock in the morning, Madam. At this moment in time, your policy.
Yes, I just want to hear from the applicant in relation to that because it has been raised by
so this is like completely altogether is the supermarket business. So some people work nighttime. Some people work start work like afternoon. So they shop. Sometimes they make them shop list before they go work. Or after sometimes after work, but if the people work afternoon or evening, they do shopping in the mornings. So when they come in the mornings, they can shop their alcohols, their fruit and vegetables, their meat, their groceries. So this is all together is a one business. So we can't otherwise, if I start selling alcohol, like say 11 a.m. or 12 a.m. So I will be like, get answered from customers, maybe like 100, 500 customers say like, why can I not buy 10 a.m. or 11 in UK? There's a standard times in 8 a.m. so you can buy alcohol. So you can't explain that to customers. So that's the standard time. So and it's good for some people, and then they shop in the morning. So people not just come and shopping in the afternoons or evenings. They shop in the mornings as well. So
okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. I just want to see, are there any other questions, points of clarification from my colleagues, or we'll move to the summing up? No. Okay. All right.
Sorry, Chair. I actually had a couple of questions. Sorry.
Apologies, I can't see you because your camera's off. Yeah.
No, my camera's on. Sorry. Apologies. Sorry if you couldn't me. I just wanted to clarify. I understand that the council's policy is from 8 till 2300 hours. However, this is for the applicant through the chair. But given that the local residents have raised concerns, would they consider reducing the hours on the basis of the concerns about the antisocial behaviour in the area? So that's one question. And the second question is for Mr. Sutherland. Before we end, could you just clarify for me which condition was the additional condition you agreed with Ms. Fruin regarding the outside area? Just to make sure that I've got that correct, that's all. Because I'm not sure, I haven't got the email, so I'll be grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, a later time, for example, 11 or 12 a.m. Would you? I don't know, just to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing.
Madam,
yeah, I don't know whether the applicant wants to respond.
I think if we're looking at 12 o'clock. Sorry, Madam, I think if you were looking at 11 or 12 o'clock as a start time for the sale of alcohol, I think that, and I appreciate he's looking at a very different operation to some of the other shops in that locality, but the other shops in that locality obviously will open, even if one was looking at I'm going to say a normal shop time. But again, that's probably a reflection of my age rather than anything else, which would be 9 o'clock in the morning. Shops in that area open much earlier, and they are all able to sell alcohol at the time that they would open. I'm afraid I can't go back before 1911, but the hours in respect of off licenses have been consistent since 1911 in relation to an off license being able to sell from 8 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Dagdalen has explained as to the importance that it is to him of his customers who will be travelling to the area, and that's why he's looking obviously at 8 o'clock for the sale of alcohol. Madam, again, because of the difficulties as to where I am and where he is, I can only ask him whether he's prepared to reduce the hours further. But it may be, Madam, that if he's not from a commercial perspective, then what I would ask you to do is obviously impose a time which the committee feels is appropriate in all the circumstances to promote the licensing objectives. It is my submission that your policy is your policy for a good reason, and we are looking to work within that policy. If I may, and I don't know whether Mr. Hart wants to come in on that point because I see his hand raised, Madam.
Chair, I was just wondering whether it might be appropriate to adjourn perhaps for 5 minutes to allow Mr. Sutherland and Mr. Dagdalen to speak, and then we could come back. Would that be appropriate?
Yes, certainly if that's helpful. We've also got the outstanding durations, the conditions, so we can deal with that afterwards. If that's
Okay.
helpful, Mr. Sutherland.
Madam, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. If we adjourn now, Chair, it's now 8:01. If we adjourn
So we'll come back at 8:06. I think if we about to reopen the hearing. I don't know if everyone wants to switch their cameras back on. Thank you. I don't know whether the applicant. Okay, great.
Sorry, madam, my buttons weren't working there for a second. I do apologize.
Yes, I mean, has there been any outcome of your discussions that you're able to share with the meeting?
Yeah, yes, thank you, madam. In relation to the hours on Sunday, there was a request that they be reduced, and discussing that with Mr. Dagdalin, he would be prepared to reduce the hours on Sunday to 10:30, to end at 10:30 on Sunday.
Okay. And what about the start time on Sunday and other days?
In relation to the start time, madam, the opening hours of the premises he thinks are important in relation to the business, which is why he is looking for 7 o'clock as the opening time, and the sale of alcohol he thinks is also important, and therefore I'm not able to put forward any revision on the time of that, madam. If on considering the application and what we've heard, you consider that it's necessary or appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, to make that time later, then obviously that is a matter for the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think we're now going to. Apologies, you still need to clarify the question from legal advice in relation to the conditions.
I do, madam. Sorry, it had slipped my mind. If you're looking at the additional conditions that are put forward, and you look at the 3rd page, there is a condition number 5. Now, this condition is also on the in your committee papers, and it is is condition 22 on page 42. The rewording is as set out on my condition 5 on the 3rd page of that additional bundle. So in essence, it deletes the word provide and inserts the word ensure, and it deletes the words to be and inserts is, so that the condition would read: the licensee shall ensure a safe receptacle for cigarette ends is placed outside for the use of customers, such receptacle being carefully placed so as not to cause an obstruction or trip hazard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amanda, do you have any further?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Odds, one
Yeah,
final
I
question?
noticed that Mr. Sutherland added the word hazard at the end of that condition, which is exactly my thoughts as well. The word trip doesn't really
cover it.
It's not English. It should be trip hazard. And but really what I wanted to say was, if he's considering the bin outside, or whoever it is considering the bin outside the shop to be suitable for cigarette ends, I think some consultation with the fire authorities is required, because cigarette ends into a public bin, personally, I would consider to be hazardous.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Do you want to respond very briefly to that, Mr.
I was
Sutherland,
going to
and then we'll
respond
move on to closing remarks.
to that point, madam, in that I know many public bins, and I have to say that although I've walked past this particular bin, I cannot categorically say that this is the case in this particular one. I know that a number of local authority bins do have a place for cigarette stubs to be placed, and obviously the bin then used. If it isn't suitable, then of course what I would say is that should the license be granted, the wording of this means that we have to ensure that there is a safe receptacle, and if that's not suitable, then obviously we will put one up.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, I think we'll now move on to closing remarks, which I'd ask all parties to keep brief and to not repeat issues that we've already discussed. Ms. So if we start with there's no responsible authorities. So if we start with the other persons, Ms. Kenyon, I don't know whether you want to say anything further. Thank you. I can't hear you if you're talking.
Sorry, it was just a no.
Yeah.
I've said everything, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I don't know whether the applicant's representative wants to very briefly sum up.
Thank you, Madam. What I would look to say in relation to this particular application is that a good proportion of the application is agreed, and hopefully with the conditions which are proposed and the assurances in relation to if they're looking at changing the operation, if somebody looks at changing the operation, then that requires a completely fresh application and consultation, that the committee can be assured that the principle of granting the license would promote the licensing objectives. I think the issue is in relation to the edges of the application, if I can put it that way. And by that I mean the start time and possibly the finish time. The application is pursued in line with the council policy. The hours for the operation of the shop are in line with the council policy in this regard, and also consistent in respect of hours which historically have been accepted as appropriate for off-licensed premises. Now, I appreciate that obviously each application is looked at in its own merit. Mr. Dagdalen has carefully considered issues which have been raised. It's his intention, as he's expressed to you, to ensure that this premises operates in a manner which is part of the community and works with the community. That is reflected both in what he said. It's reflected also in the investment that he's made, which is substantial in respect of these particular premises. It's also reflected in the conditions which he has agreed to and has put forward, and also the offer to provide a telephone number so that local residents are able to contact him and raise issues, raise concerns. It's his intention, his hope, that he'll be working with the residents so that there won't be issues or concerns which are raised by his particular premises. The opening time of 7 o'clock and the hours that he's looking for in relation to the sale of alcohol to commence at 8 o'clock on each day, they are important in relation to the business that he seeks to run, not because he's looking at creating problems in the area, but simply because from the model in respect of the business that he's operating, he is aware that obviously it needs to be commercially viable. Now, that viability, of course, he has to ensure that he promotes the licensing objectives. Whilst there are and have been raised issues in the area, it's our submission that during the day, during the time when the shop is open, The issue about persons purchasing alcohol maybe causing a nuisance by street drinking, that issue is one we would submit it in relation to the strength of the alcohol and the price of the alcohol. It's not in Mr. Dagdalen's benefit to sell cheap high-strength beers and lagers and ciders, which is why he's agreed to those particular conditions. There are premises in the area that don't have such conditions, and of course it would be open to people if they wanted to go to those premises in order to purchase such items. They won't be able to get it at Mr. Dagdalen's place because the conditions prevent it. In addition, Mr. Dagdalen has indicated to you, Madam, that he's present, and it's very much his intention to ensure that such people don't frequent his premises and cause a problem. Anybody who purchases alcohol and seeks to consume it immediately outside, they're causing a problem. They'll be quickly moved on, and he will ensure that they are not able to come back into the shop on future occasions, so that they can repeat the actions. Madam, it's my submission to this committee that by granting this particular licence, the committee can be assured that Mr. Dagdalen will do everything within his power to ensure that the licensing objectives are promoted and that the shop does become a useful part of the community, not a hindrance to it.
Thank you
If there's
very
anything
much.
further, I can assist you as well.
Thank you very much. Unless there's any final points of clarity, I think that we're now going to withdraw, unless there's any further points that anyone wants to raise. Just on clarity, we've finished representations. Okay, so thank you very much for your attendance this evening. The decision will be notified to you well, as soon as practicable. Obviously, we're just dealing with issues with the council at the moment. So I'd ask that everyone who's not going to be withdrawing to consider this decision to leave the meeting. So that's the applicant to know that all other parties. Thank you.
Thanks, bye.